And action. And welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly episode 215. It is 19th of June. I'm back from a quick one-week vacation with the family, which was fun, except I'm completely beaten by the mosquitoes.
No good deed goes unpunished.
No, that's true. Creek mosquitoes are super weird. I never had this kind of a reaction on a Scandinavian mosquitoes. True. Good. What's anything interesting happening in your life this week?
All the time. But I guess we will talk about it at the end.
We'll talk about it in the end.
You're away for a week, so we totally dropped the, forgot how we go about it, how we do the intro.
No.
Anyway.
In the PnP Weekly, we talk about my latest Microsoft 365 and the related technologies, and we touched the Microsoft articles and then the community, or some of the community articles. There's a lot of stuff happening, so we want to kind of surface what's happening across the world and talk about those things. We also typically have a visitor, and today's visitor is
Zoe Wilson.
Zoe Wilson from Avanade, unless I'm completely mistaken.
Correct.
So that's what I thought. So that should be good. We'll jump on the interview in a second. Please remember, use hashtag PnP Weekly when you are sharing things. But now that we are doing this in a vice versa order, just a reminder for everybody, we will actually have a summer break. So this will be the last episode before a summer break, and we'll be back around. You'll be back in end of August?
Mid-August.
Mid-August, okay. So we'll be back in the mid-August. And we were just planning that maybe that's then the season 10. And then we do 3 episodes and then season 11. And then 4 episodes. So, sounds super impressive, doesn't it?
Yes.
Playing the system. Let's jump on the interview. Let's jump on the interview with Zoe and let's get back on the articles right after that. Excellent. Let's just English is so hard.
On the Go Show. Good night.
Excellent.
We've just seen that Teams change the language to English US, Vesa, so come on.
Yes. No idea what the language was. Anyway, let's get started. So thank you, Zoe, for joining on the PnP Weekly, episode 215, unless I'm completely mistaken. Zoe, can you do a quick intro of who you are? Let's start from there. And what do you do for a living?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I'm delighted to be here. My name's Zoe Wilson. I spent the last year working at Avanade as the Europe Workplace Value Realisation Offering Lead, which is a really, really long job title, I know, but essentially what that means is that I work with colleagues across Europe and I work with our clients to help them get the most out of their investments in workplace technology. And it's quite broad spanning. So that's everything from Teams as a platform, Power Platform, Viva, business process optimization, content AI and knowledge management, and then of course Copilot as that becomes available as well.
Yeah. Well, how does a typical day look for you, just out of curiosity? For those, there's a lot of people watching this who might be like, maybe I should be joining Avanade, but I don't know how they actually work. How does that look for you?
Yeah, so I think my role is quite different to a lot of people who work in delivery because I've got friends who work in kind of in the different countries and they're working in delivery and they'll be working on 1 or 2 clients, whereas my role is more kind of go to market and offering development. I work across lots of different clients, lots of different opportunities. I work really closely with Microsoft, and that's at global, Europe, and in the different country level as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say there is that every day is different for me. And I like actually because it means that I've got variety and I'm not getting bored. And because I'm working with such a broad set of technology as well and across a broad set of industries, it means that I can get to explore, the different things that are going to help solve problems for the client. So it makes it really interesting. Yeah.
So it's more like is it fair to say kind of a central of excellence role, or is that?
Yeah, so I work closely with our Centre of Excellence, but it's more kind of on the
so you have a separate one. Okay.
Yeah, sales and business development. But I think I'm quite unusual in the offering lead role because I actually come from a technical background. So I've worked with SharePoint for like the best part of 2 decades. And then over the last few years, expanding into Teams and the wider Microsoft 365 and Power Platform stack. But for me, it's that, the ability to understand clients' problems and then design offerings and solutions that can help them, and understanding the commercial implications and what it means from a licensing perspective as well. So it's really interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. So how do you go about it? Because I can imagine with the breadth of the offerings that we offer at Microsoft, you've got your hand full, just staying up to date on what's available and what has changed, what's coming, and so that you can include all of that in the offerings you build. So what is your strategy or tactic even? How do you stay up to date?
So that comes down to network and community, and that's both the community in terms of like the Microsoft technical community and having the friends who have got similar interests and who can flag when something new's coming and you can bounce ideas around what that means. That's having the network and the community connections into Microsoft so that you can have the kind of similar but different conversation with Microsoft as well. And then within Avanade, it's having that internal community and that internal network of contacts and people with different areas of expertise so that you can start to bounce these ideas around and actually think, okay, so what does that mean for our clients? What does that mean for what we take to market? And there's a bit of a balancing act as well, because you've kind of got to keep the sense of realism, so what can we actually do now? What can we do with the licenses that are currently available? And what can we do if a client has got E3 versus E5 or Viva Insights versus Viva Suite or whatever that might be, versus what's coming down the roadmap? And, what are these new things that clients are getting excited about? And what are the decisions that they need to make now to make sure that they're ready for those things and that they're not potentially putting roadblocks in the way?
Yeah. That's actually, now coming back on, you mentioned that you have a SharePoint background. I was already thinking that at the time you were mentioning it. It's interesting, the baseline skill set, what you clearly have as staying up to date on technology and also the figuring out the offerings and everything else, those baseline does not change. The technology evolves, but the customer day-to-day engagement is still the same. It's just a matter of, okay, so now we have this feature in Teams, and maybe that suits better than this older feature in here, and that thing kind of evolves forward. It's an interesting kind of a role for sure, as customer-facing offering creation evolves, but the dynamics are still the same, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the problems that you're solving for are still the same. It's still the same problems that it was 15, 20 years ago when I first started working with SharePoint, which is how can I find things more easily? How can I manage knowledge better? How can I make my processes better and more effective? And how can we help users get the skills that they need? So it's just, it's the same types of problems. It's just that the technology and the ways that we can solve for it have changed.
Yeah, and we keep on releasing additional Viva modules every single day. So, So
that, but also another thing that I want to ask, like, how do you see the way we work and how they changed over time, maybe even age groups, factor into solutions that you design now versus we've done 20 years back or 10 years back?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, people are generally more technically up to speed now than they would have been like in the early 2000s when I first started my IT career. You do still get pockets of resistance, and sometimes those can be age groups. But I think if you apply the right type of change management to that, and you you put the effort into bringing those resistors on board, then you can still get to a really good outcome. The way that we're working is completely different. I mean, we were tied to offices, we were tied to on-premises environments and VPNs and, network restrictions that made it really difficult to access stuff unless you were in like a physical building that was on a client network. So, we've got a lot more possibilities now, but, for me, it makes it really exciting.
Right. So how do you approach, so let's say, you do customer projects, right, as well, or do you just do offerings?
So I do customer engagements, but I'm not generally involved on the delivery side.
What would be the approach of creating these offerings? How does that work in Avanade? How do you come up with a offering for customers?
You go for a walk and you ponder the meaning of life and the way we collaborate. Like, I got it.
Yeah, so there's like I guess a couple of different routes. One is kind of the technology led, where if I look at Viva and some of the stuff that I've come into around Viva, you've got the technology capabilities and what this can do for employee experience. The way that I much prefer and the way that I try to work is starting with what is the problem that we're actually solving for, what is the challenge, and then how can different approaches and different kinds of technology help that. And this isn't an Avanade thing. This is kind of technical consulting, and having worked with techies for years, I think for people who like technical problem solving, they have a tendency to go straight to let's talk to the customer about loads of tech. I've got all this shiny tech and I want to tell you what it can do. It's going to be fantastic. But what I've found works really well is actually starting at a higher level than that. What is the macro context? And the way during the pandemic, the way that I was, talking about Viva was actually starting with what are the problems that we're seeing in the world at a high level. We've got a mental health pandemic as well as an actual pandemic. We've got the fact that we've all got more distractions and more Teams meetings and chats and more work to do and less time to do it in, and these blurring lines between home and work. And then you start to introduce how technology and solutions can actually solve for that. And it resonates with people better because you're giving them something that they emotionally respond to first, rather than just saying, woo, here's some tech, here's Copilot, get excited.
Yeah,
exactly. And I guess that's also the transition from IT-driven decision-making to business-driven decision-making as well, which we're seeing within the industry.
Mm-hmm.
If you look back at the latest offerings that you've worked on, maybe versus the features that we've announced, what is your favorite feature / productivity collaboration hack that you can do on M365 today? Or maybe it's coming.
Yeah,
So if
I look at the features that we have today, my favorite and the ones that I love there's two sets that I like to talk to people about the most. One is all of the presenting features in Teams, because I feel like if we're tech professionals and we're working remotely and we're presenting to colleagues and clients and partners on calls, we should be able to use Teams properly. And it has the tools and the features baked within Teams meetings for you to actually come across as really slick and professional. And the amount of people who don't know how to use it properly, it's just incredible.
I'm here.
So I
what would be an example? What would be an example of that?
So this is a guy who everyone in the UK will know, Chris Whitty, who through the first year of the pandemic, he did like the government briefings, and for every single one of them, he was saying, "Next slide, please. Next slide, please." So I've been on a personal mission to eliminate this phrase, which is why my friend bought me this candle. We shouldn't need to be saying next slide, please. You just use presenter view. Everybody can take control. It looks like you've rehearsed all of the timing and everything's really slick and seamless. So that for me, I know it's not really a productivity tip, but just in terms of in terms of how people perceive you and your capabilities, I think it's important. And then the other set of features is the accessibility features. And a lot of people don't really know that these exist. The fact that across all of M365, we've got like this core of accessibility features that can help people who need them to be able to work more effectively, but they can also benefit people who can learn to use them to be more effective as well. So for me, one of my favorite things that I like to do, if I'm working on a document and I've spent like days writing this document and I'm at the point where I can't read if it makes sense anymore, I like to use the read aloud and get it to read it back to me, because when someone speaks it to you, your brain processes it differently and you can tell straight away if a sentence doesn't sound right.
Right. Never thought of it. That is a great tip.
That's actually.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I learned a thing.
Yes. That's actually really, really cool. And there's a lot of those features actually, like I said, and I think it's in general also like 30-40% of people will benefit out of this accessibility improvements and features overall, because they will make sure that people can stay more focused on what's actually happening, and is it zooming or whatever the feature is. There's different capabilities there. Now, let's talk a bit about your community work. And you're also a Viva Explorer. What does that mean in practice?
Yeah, so I'm a Microsoft MVP and a Viva Explorer, and I think it's probably, I don't know, about 18 months since the Viva Explorers became a thing. And this started with a small group of us who were predominantly in the UK with a couple of European colleagues as well. And what we wanted was a way that we could work together to amplify what we were trying to share about Viva in the community so that we could help get more content out there and, you know, start to answer the questions about, you know, what is it? Why should I care? How do I use it? And this has grown in the last 18 months from, I think, 12 of us that started originally through to, I don't know, I've lost count, like 60 or 70 people globally.
Wow, that's cool.
Which is just fantastic. And we've got a few people from Microsoft now who are part of the Viva Explorer community. We've got what we call friends of Viva Explorers, so non-MVPs who we work really closely with and we kind of mentor and support. But we kind of kept it to MVPs and RDs and then Microsoft so that we can actually talk about some of the NDA roadmap stuff as well and start to interpret what this is going to mean so that we're ready to actually amplify that when things land publicly. And it's been absolutely fantastic for me. You know, I've been speaking in the community for, I don't know, like 4 years, something like that. And it was really when I found the Viva Explorers that I felt like I'd found my tribe of people, you know, the people who got the technology, but also understood the business side of it and the people impact. And I've made some really great friends through the Viva Explorers, which is fantastic. And we've, you know, we had a global conference that we did last month, which was fantastic. Earlier this month, actually, losing track of dates.
Flies, right?
Yeah. So it's, you know, I think it's, Leslie likes to call it a movement. You know, it's a movement where we're just trying to kind of help speed up and accelerate the understanding of what Viva can do across the world.
Yeah.
And to what extent is that, you know, I don't know if you recall the video, there is this video / meme of this guy dances alone at a festival and then slowly, gradually, you know, more folks come in and then at the end of the day, like everyone's there. Did it feel like that? Like, you know, you were the only few and nobody is like, what are you guys talking about? And now it's like, oh, now I get, and then you are at the point, you know, critical mass where people join in. Is that kind of the way it went down?
Yeah, absolutely. And the really funny thing is that I'm sure that video has been shared in the kind of original group of explorers as well as what we were trying to accomplish.
That's good. And that we need to find the reference on that video, maybe on the blog post related on this show, because it is a really good example. And it's actually quite commonly used as an example on group, what is
adoption.
It? Group adoption. So 1, 2, 4, 6, and woof, all of a sudden the spark. Okay. So.
Yeah, so we've got Comsverse in the UK, which is a Teams conference, which is taking place this week. And this year, for the first year, there's a Viva track. Mark Vale reached out to us to ask if we'd curate the Viva track as the Viva Explorers. Because it's not, you know, he comes from like a Teams UC background, so we just said, look, I'd rather just outsource this to you. You know what good looks like for Viva. So when we got the session submissions in, I was expecting all of the sessions to have been submitted by Viva Explorers. And when we actually looked at it, I was really pleasantly surprised at how many sessions we got and how many there were from people that I didn't know and that weren't explorers, because it demonstrated to me that there's starting to be a lot more momentum in terms of people who are interested.
Can you explain what's the difference between Microsoft Viva? So what's causing this? I can speculate and answer this question as well, but it's kind of curious discussion point. What is the special thing about Microsoft Viva? Why is it different than the other technology?
Because it puts people at the center. You know, it's not a tool that can help you do your job. It's a tool that can help you protect your well-being, protect your time, manage your workload, support your mental health, make it easier for you to find the things that you're looking for and find the experts. And I think it's that combination of factors. You know, really, it's not just about what you as an individual need to do at work, but all of the things surrounding that you need to bring your whole self to work and be effective and productive. And most importantly, happy.
And is that to what extent its value depends on how widely it is used in the org. So in other words, does everybody needs to be on it in order for everybody to benefit, or do you already get the benefit even if only a handful, like a unit department, use it only?
It depends what part of Viva we're talking about, because this is where the messaging starts to get challenging, doesn't it? Because you've got so many different modules within Viva, and at the moment, I know it feels like everything's getting a Copilot, and at one point it felt like everything was just being called Viva. So it depends what it is. I think Viva Connections, absolutely, everybody everybody benefits if everybody has access to that front door into the organization and the easy way to find stuff. If I look at something like Viva Insights, as an individual, everybody benefits from the tools that they get on a personal level to help support their well-being and their time management and all of those things. When we start to look at some of the more premium features, so if I stick with Viva Insights, I think there's some value that you can get out of turning on Viva Insights for everybody and giving people the manager and leader insights. But if that's all you do, you're leaving value on the table, because you need to help the leaders and the managers to understand, what does this actually mean? What should I do with this? How can I turn this insight into something that's actionable, that I can measure? Where how do I know what I need to do with what I can see in this dashboard? And for me, I think for Viva Insights, it starts to become more powerful when you start to look at advanced insights and how you use it to test a hypothesis. So at Avanade, this was before I joined, so I can't take any credit for this, but this is one of my favourite stories for Viva Insights. We used Viva Insights to test whether giving people flexibility over their work pattern would have a detrimental impact or a positive impact. So we had about 160 people who could go from moving Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, to whatever kind of compressed hours work for them. So some people did 4-day weeks instead of 5. Some people took every other Friday off or every Wednesday afternoon off, whatever worked for them in their life. And then we had a control group who carried on working the same amount of time. And we looked at lots of different data sources. So, sentiment surveys, we looked at kind of project delivery, milestones and client satisfaction. And what we found was that, people were happier, obviously, because they're getting an extra day off. But there was a positive impact on work as well. So there was no impact on, missed project milestones. There was no impact on revenue or anything like that. And clients were happier because they saw we were doing something really positive. So that work pattern became something that we rolled out to everybody. And that, sorry, go on.
No. I'm just saying, and you can see all of that data then in Viva Insights. Then is that available from there? How does that work in practice for anybody who's listening or watching?
Yeah, so in practice, with the advanced insights, that's Power BI, where you can build those custom reports, custom algorithms and queries and weightings and things like that. And there's a little bit of kind of data science and stuff, behavioral science probably that you need to assign to that as well. But to me, that's where you really start to get the magic.
Yep. That's actually great, because then you can do organizational experiments. That's a brilliant example, by the way, on testing out things in a small pilot group and then seeing the results and then expanding that. Anyway, experiments is a growing theme across the industries on testing out things and then learning from those things and growing based on that. That's actually really cool. Now, how would you, so coming back on the Viva and Viva, let's say the Viva product itself, which for sure, I think even for Microsoft employees, it's difficult to explain what it is, and it's more on business-driven value rather than technology value, and that's I guess is the main difference. Traditionally, Microsoft, when I was a consultant still in Microsoft, that was always about technology, and then we potentially have Accenture business consultants doing the sweet talk to the CEO level. So, but it was different. How would you explain in let's say, well, let's rephrase this. I'm trying to think a proper question for the Microsoft Viva. What would be your tips and what would be the modules what you would recommend people to have a look on first in Microsoft Viva? How to get started on Microsoft Viva road?
Yeah, so for me, Viva Connections has to be the first one. I think it's I call it the gateway drug of Viva, because it's something it's seeded within E3 and E5 license, so it doesn't require an additional license. And the reason that I recommend people start with Viva Connections is that it really demonstrates the power of bringing something into that team scaffold. So giving people that team's front door into the wider organization. And once you get organization, once you kind of bought into that as the strategy, then starting to identify use cases and scenarios for the rest of Viva and for other things like collab apps and collab controls, collab toolkit, the Power Platform, they all then start to follow. Viva Engage is another good one as well. And then for me, I think Viva Topics is incredibly powerful. That that kind of content AI transforming content to knowledge is a good place to start for clients who are in the right place for that.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I'm now losing my question.
So as you think, go think about your own.
Okay.
Zoe, if you had $1 million or unlimited funds, if you had a blank check, what would you like us at Microsoft to fix? You can ask for one thing. You have a genie of sorts. What would you want to see on M365, either fixed or added?
That's a really good question. Can I think about that one?
Yes. Okay, Vesa, back to you.
Now, before we actually started recording, we also talked about the other community stuff what you've been doing. And coming back on the Viva Explorer track, you had new presenters and unknown people in there as well. Can you talk a bit about that side as well, and how you actually help people to get started on presenting? Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, obviously, I'm a woman in tech. I'm quite visible, and for the last few years I've made sure that I'm visible both within my employers and within the community, and I help kind of younger women. If I spot someone who I think has got potential, I'll nudge them towards public speaking. So that's been something I've done for a while. And then towards the end of last year, when things started going back to in person again, I think I had 3 or 4 events in 1 week where I saw the speaker roster with just middle-aged white men, complete lack of diversity, and I got really angry about it, because the topics for some of these conferences, I know I have like a big list of women that I could point them to who would be fantastic. So I started talking to Sarah Fenner and Luke Evans about this at ESPC last year, and we started bouncing ideas around about how could we address this? How could we start to encourage more diversity in speakers? How could we start to create a space where people could, take that first step into submitting to speak at an event, writing their profile? So in May, we ran the first new speaker workshop, which we did as a community day. It was in Manchester in the UK, and we had 17 people turn up for this. We had one guy, Fred, who travelled from an African country, which was just incredible. Wow. We had a couple of people who came from Ireland. We had a mix of gender diversity, ethnic diversity, and it was just absolutely fantastic. I don't think we did anything groundbreaking, but we took them through everything, like how do you create a Sessionize account, and how do you write your bio? What makes a good session abstract? How do you structure it so that it stands out when people are reviewing sessions? Yep. And we actually ran like a fake session review as well using Sessionize. So we showed them how, if an organizer was doing a blind review like Scottish Summit do, where they, you can't see the submitter and you just see 3 sessions side by side, we were demonstrating to them, this is why you need to stand out, because all you've got is the description. Yeah. Then we did some practical stuff as well, like speaking tips and stuff like that. And some of the people who joined are already speaking at events, which is just great.
Well, related on that one, obviously, we absolutely want to have a equal, let's say, a more diverse community and an equal balance. And of course, equal balance is hard, because what is equal balance? But we need to increase diversity of the community. Me and Waldek are a good example of a white males always doing this show, but but we absolutely want to increase the diversity and getting more women in IT. What would be your tips for anybody who's like thinking a career in IT and a woman who feels maybe not not that kind of welcoming maybe on the community. And have you seen the change within the historical perspective? You've been around for quite a long time.
Yeah, so it's definitely changed. If I think back to my early years in my career, I mean, I'm still often the only woman in the room, which it's sad, although it doesn't happen as often anymore. But I'm not ignored when I speak anymore or passed over. One place that I worked early in my career, I'd say something and people just wouldn't listen until the man next to me repeated it. So I don't have to deal with that anymore. That's a lot better.
Wow, that's brilliant.
The one thing that I don't think we're doing very well is promoting how rewarding a career in tech can be and how life-changing it can be, how it can help move up, from people from working class to middle class, how, it can change the life of people. We're not marketing this very well in schools.
Yeah.
Particularly not in the UK. I'm not sure how this goes in other parts of the world, but computing and tech is still seen as a boys' subject. And for me, we have to start in education. We have to get people young. We have to show them how how many different career paths there are, and how much fun it can be, and really get people motivated. And then for people who are kind of assessing whether it's for them or not. If they're young, I'd say just give it a go. A choice that you make at 18 or 20 or 22 or 25 or even 30 or older, you don't have to stick with that. You can try things out, you can learn, you can move sideways, you can move industries, and then find someone who's walked in your shoes. One of the things I love about the community is the fact that everybody is so friendly. And if someone reached out to me to ask, and this does happen, if someone reached out to me to ask what a career in tech has been, what I've experienced, 9 times out of 10, I expect the woman will be helpful and we'll have a call and we'll have a chat with someone.
Yeah. So the mentorship is good and getting those connections and directly asking assistance for sure. I think, at least personally, I have the massive problem of a 24 hours in a day, which is surprisingly limited amount of time. So balancing that out is always hard. But I think overall community is always welcoming everybody, which is really, really cool. Of course, there are certain exceptions, but then typically what happens is that those exceptions and people who cannot behave, they might pop in, but within a year or two, they are gone. So those who stick around are quite helpful, so which is good. How's the timing, Waldek?
Timing's good.
Timing is good. No.
The most important question.
No. I have no idea where we are from a timing perspective. We're good.
We're good. We're good.
So now, if there's any if we do a top list, what would be your kind of explicit tips on coming building a career in IT if you are a woman? Any thoughts on that?
So find a mentor, I think is really helpful. And actually, if you can, find a sponsor. So not just someone who can help share the benefits of the things they've been through in their career, but if you can find someone who speaks about you when you're not in the room, who puts your name forward as someone who would be a good candidate for something or other, I think that is super powerful. Be passionate, be proactive. I've seen a lot of younger people in their career where they, particularly people who've gone to university, where they just think, well, I've done the hard work now, got my degree, that's me talking. And they just kind of sit there and, wait for the rewards of their education. But actually, when you start work, that's when the real hard work starts. Yeah. So, be passionate, be proactive, look for opportunities to learn, get out of your comfort zone. One thing that we've got now, which was, we still had it when I was younger, but it wasn't as extensive. The amount of learning resources that you can access for free online is just absolutely phenomenal. Whether it's Microsoft Learn, whether it's LinkedIn Learning or Pluralsight, whether it's individual people's blogs that they write or YouTube channels, whatever you're interested in, there's stuff out there that can help you learn. So, be curious and just learn and find the things that excite you and then figure out what you need to do to get your career close to that.
Yeah.
How would you recommend people go about finding a sponsor? Because I can imagine it sounds great to have that person, who is there for you, who speaks about you, as you said, when you aren't in the room. But how would you find that person?
That's a harder question. I think finding people in your organization who are maybe a little bit more experienced than you, who are in a position where they could, you don't need to go right to the top straight away, but find people who can influence at least maybe the next career step or two, and then find a reason to talk to them. Approach them, ask if you could have a coffee and look at how you can help them, or you want to learn more about what they do or something like that. Be interested in them and find the things that you're interested in that relate to that. And this might not happen overnight, but put the effort in to build the relationship. And if you get that right mix, I think the sponsorship starts to happen naturally.
Yeah. And to what extent would you say that things like working in the open, does that help in the org, or does it work against you because maybe you might make a mistake, you will come across somebody who knows something better, and it will turn out bad? Do you have any experience with that? Like, to what extent that you've seen that being a helpful thing or not?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of working out loud. I think there's nothing more frustrating, is there, than when you're waiting to collaborate with someone and they won't share the file until they've done the first draft, and you just think, just share the file with me. Let's just put it together. And we'll all have different things that we can bring. So working out loud, I think is great. And if someone knows more than you, and if someone has a better idea, the more you work in the open, the quicker you can get the benefit of that, instead of waiting until you're finished and them saying, well, wouldn't have done it like that, or did you know all this stuff exists over here that was exactly what you said in a different way.
And anyway, working out loud, actually, it's basically, the challenge is that you are making yourself vulnerable for other people's feedback and comments, and that's something which we, obviously, the older you get and more experience you have, the less we really feel bad about it. But that's something which would be. Well, it's incredibly important to get out of that shell, because again, when you get out of that internal shell, then you put yourself available, and then people start realizing the stuff what you're doing. And otherwise, how would they know? How would they know that you're the best person in the world, or what you have done, or how can they benefit? And then that the working out loud, like you said, Zoe, is a great way of doing those networking and connections, and then going to the user groups and going to locations, meeting people, now that we can do that again. It's going to be interesting to see how long we're going to say this as a new thing for meeting people again, because I think it's been a while already where we're outside of that problem, but it left a mark in some of us. But still, I think that the working out loud is a really good point, and also putting yourself in social media, potentially LinkedIn. Hey, I wrote this thing in a blog. Anybody has any opinions?
Yeah.
Have you had any bad experiences about that, actually? And how do you handle that feedback or negativity, possible negativity? Or has it always been just walking on roses and everybody is happy?
No, so I probably have when I was younger, but I think I've blocked them out a little bit. But the first 10 years of my career, I was in the north of England. I was in a city. I worked in Leeds, so it's not somewhere small. But from a jobs market perspective, it was still a little bit behind London. There wasn't as many jobs as somewhere like London, so the job market wasn't as competitive. And it meant that I really struggled to actually start getting promoted and opportunities until I moved to London. And I think by the time I moved to London, I was at the point where I didn't care. So, it's not a popularity contest. If I don't agree with someone professionally, it doesn't mean that I don't like them or that they're a horrible person. Or if they don't agree with me, it doesn't mean that they think I'm horrible. And if they did, it wouldn't matter anyway. But I know you can't just start out with that mindset. I think it takes time and experience to get to the point where you realize actually there's no point investing like mental energy and time worrying about this when there's nothing you can do about it.
True.
I mean, if anything else, they don't teach that at school, and experiences with critique that we get at school is different, right? Because it's often very personal. Whereas if you get to work, as you say, like just the fact that somebody said something about my work, perfect. I learned from that, and I really appreciate the fact that somebody, took the effort to show me that there is a better way to go about things, right? So if anything else, that is a valuable thing. But it's a shame that we wait with learning about that only until we are actually well in our work experience.
I guess.
Yeah, and I look at some of the younger people that I talk to who have been nervous about starting a blog or presenting at events and things like that, and it's because they feel like they don't have anything to share. But the advice that I give them is, like, even if you're at the start of your career, you can talk about your learnings and your experience, and you bring a different perspective to other people, and it will help. And even if it's just one person that it helps and inspires, you'll have something valuable to share for other people. And it's like a superpower, isn't it? If you can present well, and you do that through presenting at user groups and conferences and things like that, and then you take that back into your professional career, it's like a superpower that can help you be more successful and get promoted. Sure. And different and interesting jobs as well.
Yeah, it was also this interesting thing. Now you mentioned that I learned the other day, like, what is the benefit for a mentor to have a mentee who is younger? Well, to learn from them how they go about and learn things, because they might be using different approaches, different tech, and because of where you are, you don't. Like, there is a generation gap, right? Yep. And you get to hear from that person how they go up. So it's exactly that. Like, you are younger, you are earlier on in career. Tell people how you go about things, so that people who are more experienced, like, I didn't know that young folks learn on TikTok. Who would have thought, right? Well, I wouldn't know.
Or it might be a regional gap as well, because again, people learn differently in different countries, and even inside of a country, they have a different methods on doing things. Again, that increases the diversity, and then diversity increases us more broadly understanding, that's a great idea, and then you can actually learn from there. So making sure that everybody is welcome is super important for that precise perspective, so that we learn from each other. So which is really, really cool. Now, before we close up, because I know that Waldek has a hard stop, not really soon, but still pretty soon. On the hour, yes. What's typically what we do within the show as well? We talk about what's happening within it this week. Of course, we can't really talk about NDA stuff for customers, but anything interesting on your table, Zoe? How does your week look like in this time of the year?
So as well as being the Europe Workplace Value Realization Lead, I am also leading globally at Avanade on our Copilot and generative AI perspective. So a large part of my time at the moment is actually spent talking to clients, and not just talking to clients, educating colleagues as well. And actually, what does Copilot mean for us? What does it mean for them? Or what will it mean for them when it's available? What are the things that they have to start thinking about now in terms of readiness, and where their content lives, and the things like the adoption levels and digital maturity within the organization, and all of that stuff. So it's super, super interesting.
Now, I have to jump on that one, because the Copilot obviously is an interesting thing. Before we go to the weekly roundup for me and Waldek, how are you approaching the Copilot right now? Because it's not really available for customers. What kind of questions do you get from customers related on Copilot? When it's available, how much will it cost, right? So
yeah, exactly that. They think that they think that just because you won't tell them, we've got the answer and we'll tell them. But yeah, that's the most common thing. Like, when is it coming? What will it cost? For us though, it's we've got these workplace co-pilots, as I call them. So the Windows Copilot, Copilot in Viva, M365, Power Platform, and then ones like SharePoint and stuff like that as well. So we've got this big collection of Copilots that are coming from a workplace perspective, but there's a much wider generative AI impact as well. So we've got, all of the other Copilot families as well. We've got custom Copilots with Azure OpenAI. And it's, there's a bit of it which is helping clients understand the impact that this might have. And I say might because we don't know yet. We don't fully know how this is going to transform businesses. Yeah. But the impact that it might have on their business over the next 2, 3, 5 years, and what this means when they start thinking about how they want to work and how they reinvent how work gets done. And personally, I think this is going to be a really exciting journey that we're going on, because we don't actually know all the answers yet. And I think there's going to be like a couple of years of this people getting ready, and then it's going to be available and people start using it, and it's probably not going to be until we get to like that 2 or 3 year mark that we actually start to really understand the bigger picture of what this means. How the way that this is going to reshape organizations and industries, and how data flows and how people interact with systems and processes. So yeah, it's super interesting. But we paint, or I paint like this bigger picture, and and then we bring them back to you can't do that yet. This is what you can do right now to get ready.
Yep.
Yeah.
What can you do right now to get ready? I have to. This is going to take now another 30 minutes. So
there's a much bigger conversation, but the lenses that we look across are kind of platform, security, content, people,
yes.
operations. Nothing too surprising in there, but
yeah, getting ready for the fact that there's going to be a machine who's going to know if you have information which is too widely shared for a people. That's a really good example. You need to know that advance rather than afterwards when it's already exposed for everybody, and so all of that stuff. Cool. Yeah. Waldek, what you gonna do this week? Anything interesting on your table?
Very interesting. So over the last 2 weeks, we ran a hackathon where folks have built exciting apps for teams. Hackathon, or the submission time, is done, which means we've got a bunch of cool apps to review, to judge, and the awesome task to pick the winner. So that is on my plate for this week predominantly. That's
cool. And I guess I will need to do some helping on that as well, unless I'm completely mistaken. We'll see. On my table, I was actually on vacation last week, so I'm catching up. My email inbox has exploded, and there's so many things to follow up on, which is always a bummer. But more importantly, Friday is a public holiday. It's Midsummer Eve, and it's the biggest family celebration in Sweden and Finland, which I'm a bit confused. Why is it only Sweden and Finland? Because other countries don't celebrate Midsummer.
Different gods. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's the reason, or we never let that traditional. It's basically bacon. What is it? Summer. It's in the midsummer, so the longest day of the year, and that's been a traditional celebration thing in Sweden and Finland for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and
good for
years.
you.
So, yeah, exactly. So. Anyway, I guess that's it for this one. Thank you, Zoe, for joining. We'll definitely invite you again on a show a bit later, of course, but it's good to catch up. And it's actually really cool to have a discussion, not about the technology, but rather about the human level and kind of a softer skill level, because, again, that is almost more important than the technology within nowadays business. Thank you, Waldek, for joining as well. I guess we'll jump on the weekly articles on this one. So thank you, Zoe.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers. Excellent. Thank you, Zoe, one more time on the interview and discussion. Really, really cool to catch up as well, and cool discussion. Let's jump on the articles, right?
Let's do that.
What do you
have for us this week?
Let me share my screen and let's have a look. So we were collecting articles from a quite long time period, but we didn't obviously want to have all of the things. We're just resurfacing certain articles around the discussions, and we can talk about what's actually happening. The last time we did a recording with Smita, we didn't do articles because we were just recording that after the previous episode. But let's start with the Microsoft Teams blog. There was a now in public preview collaborative notes in Microsoft Teams meeting, and we've been using this internally actually for quite a long time. Basic idea is that you have a loop-powered notes, which you can basically collect easily throughout the meeting. So you can mention people, all of that stuff, which is then getting stored as a loop component, which is pretty cool. They actually work really, really well, and you can embed them in the different systems and all of that stuff as well. So nice looking picture. Who's drawing that nicely? Cool.
That isn't me.
I think that's a Figma picture, but anyway, it's super impressive. Now, the second article on the Teams blog is how ISVs are driving customer retention by enabling unique experiences in Microsoft Teams. And this is really around showcasing the opportunities and possibilities for ISVs and partners on extending Microsoft 365, so providing additional features and capabilities, and then calling out a few of the ISVs and what they actually do, so and what kind of things can be implemented. So I to be honest, I really like this kind of a blog post because they explain the scenarios what we can do, rather than here's an API, here's an API, here's an API. It's like, cool. What now? What can I do with those APIs? And I that's the classic challenge always been with the Microsoft documentation, that it focuses on API, extensibility. But it's like, okay, but so what's the value out of it? So,
well, I mean, if anything else, there's place for the reference docs that explain how things work.
Sure.
And then there's place for some other place where you can learn, why would you care? What problems does it solve, and how does that fit into the needs that you've got in your work? So
absolutely, and those are actually quite more so having that inspirational things. These kind of blog posts are nice because again they're showing and explaining, and then it's like, oh, if I take that and combine that with our product, then we'll have, and that's how you get people those killer ideas on reading things. Now, on the Teams and Rooms and Teams meeting, we basically announced new features in the InfoComm 2023, and this is a collection from Matt related on all of those features and how they actually work. This is actually pretty cool stuff where, for example, splitting the people who are sitting in the room for individual videos. I think we talked about this one in the past already, but again, we're rolling out these features to be out as well, because then it doesn't matter if you're in the room or remotely from home, you will feel as part of the meeting.
Yeah, I think way back when, when we had this big device, big appliance with the round cameras.
The round camera, yeah, that actually, yeah.
Polycom was it called?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, where it would pick up the person who would speak in the room, but it would just show one person at a time, right?
Yes, that's true. Now it's actually splitting that to an individual rooms. And of course, still those people who are in the room, it's much more inclusive or easier because you can see the reactions more vividly. But still, I think this is a really, really, really cool feature. I still remember vividly on those classic before pandemic, those meeting invites in Redmond time zone where you come, okay, fine, the last meeting of the day, 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., open up a meeting invite, and it's like no Teams, no link, no nothing links. And you're like, I can't join this if you don't include me an option to join.
Phone number for you to call in.
Yeah, in some of them, yes. In some of them.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that guy in Finland. Maybe we'll call that.
On the phone on the table.
Exactly.
So inclusive.
Yeah, but that I was a bit of an exception at the time. So it's luckily we are improving from there. The world has moved on. So on the Microsoft Viva side, Microsoft Viva Pulse is now available in public preview, and this is really around collecting the feedback, ideas, and the survey style. How are you doing, and all of that stuff. So I think great feature and functionality, which is commonly used within the companies. Quite commonly actually by our partner ecosystem has a lot of these things offered as well. Now it's also offered by Microsoft as an option. So. Which is really, really cool. And then we had the SharePoint Experience, the Intro podcast. So this is something what Mark Cashman recorded together with Adam Hametz. Adam Hametz is in my organizational chain. Adam owns SharePoint Experiences, and actually Mark is nowadays in the same organization and chains as well. And they recorded this in Las Vegas to talk about the new SharePoint Experiences. We did announce a lot of cool features in Las Vegas related on SharePoint, OneDrive, and the related technologies, and they basically have a discussion on them. So.
Wow, it's a really cool stage that they have. Like, I wish we had this stage for our thing too. We could just get together and talk and.
No, that's doable. I'll just pick you up with my private plane, and then we can fly to MGM. Is that okay for you? So.
Yeah, like 9-hour flight for half an hour recording. Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Absolutely makes sense. Good. And this one we raised for the discussion, deploying Microsoft Viva Connection internally in Microsoft. And this one's really good. Actually, Alex Terentative shared this in Twitter, which we need to promote more widely, a bit more widely, because this is actually really, really, really cool blog post related on how the Viva Connection was deployed in Microsoft and how we are using the Viva Connection mobile first experience to accessing relevant information what you have. So, and I was testing this and it actually works amazingly well. So whenever you're wondering, it's like in Microsoft, we do get stock awards. You can use it. It's a really easy way to check what is my next stock award numbers and timing and all of that through the app.
Yeah, but also even things like the holidays or the holidays,
absolutely.
Vacations. Like in some parts, we have this obscure systems that are way back when, and they just work. But if you are on your phone on the go, well, the last thing you want to do is use some kind of VB app or something else. So having a card that just works and allows you to basically do what you need to do, like pick up the dates and like I am gone from there to then and I am gone for this thing, works like a charm, and it's super easy.
Yes, absolutely. Personally, I'm still waiting, and we promised that we're doing this more flexibility within the cards and all of that stuff, so we can make the Viva Connection more nicer looking. It's pretty, let's say, dull still. It's hard to make it really kind of a compelling from a branding perspective. But there's a lot of planning and features coming on there with background colors and different card colors and card sizes and all of that stuff. So I think it's a natural evolution. Like if you remember Windows Phone, if anybody in this who's listening or watching remember the Windows Phone tiles, originally they were super simple squares, but then we started having more flexibility and the similar thing clearly is happening with Viva Connection as well, luckily. So, but the idea is technically the same.
We're bringing Windows tiles to Metro tiles to Viva Connection.
No, I'm not saying that. But it's kind of the same idea still when I think about it. So it is not a bad idea at all. So you can have additional set of features, and then, as you said, surfacing those multiple applications to a single hub and mobile experience, and those relevant operations also to be easily available from there rather than always jumping to a different application. The concept is really, really strong. We just need to a bit improve the messaging and provide some samples. And yes, some of that is on my table as well. So we'll get it done.
Ship it.
Right after the summer, right?
Yes.
Nothing happens now. And then right after summer,
which hemisphere?
Yes, and right after summer, it's already Thanksgiving, so nothing happens there, and nothing. No, just kidding. On the Power Automate side, there was 24 new verified, 29 independent publisher connect, 37 updated connectors, and again, these are really, really. I love the Power Platform organization. I did partner quite closely at some point with them to set up some of their stuff. Obviously, they've been running that by themselves for a long, long time already, but the original idea with the GitHub and everything else, and then I love the fact that people can get their own independent publisher connectors available in the product. And that's really, really, really cool. You submit something on a GitHub and it will be exposed in product, and for me that's how it should be. That's how open source should be exposed and used within a product. Of course, for customers, they can enable or disable them depending on what they want to do. So really cool.
Yeah.
On the Power App side, this is a bit older one, but we haven't covered this. I just related on my 1 week off. I have more things to talk about. So much to talk about because I've been silent for the whole week. But Power Platform and Power Apps are introducing a new enterprise application templates. And I think, Waldek, you said FAP 40 immediately when you read this title. Which is something super relevant for old school people who've been around within the ecosystem for a long time. So many moons ago, we introduced FAP 40 enterprise templates, which were actually 37 templates, if I remember correctly. So it wasn't even 40. Close enough. But basic idea obviously is that you have to have the baseline, and then on top of that baseline, we want to have more turnkey solutions and example solutions and templates available, and that's what these are all about. So providing templates and starting points and examples what you can actually build using the platform in Power Apps.
Yeah, and also like in a way it's meant to raise the bar, because we see like across the board, across the customers, types of businesses that work on M365 and Power Platform, we see a lot of similar types of apps being built. So in other words, like, why should everyone reinvent the wheel and build the same things over and over from scratch? Instead, we offer a template that you can adjust to your needs, but you have the basics in place already. So with that, we raise the bar, allowing you to focus on the things that you truly need, that are specific to you, and not that you have to, I need to have
the baseline
to store something else, store something about a person or yes, like we know that already. Here it is. Start from here and build on top. Yeah,
it's almost like the classic provisioning engine discussion what we had within SharePoint at some point, which is so raise the bar, increase the abstraction. Also on the Power App side, there was an announcing general availability for Power Platform customer managed keys, and this is really cool from a security perspective. Important thing. So basically securing encryption using the customer keys, so that increasing the security, increasing the compliancy of the systems. Customers own their own data, of course, which is super important also in Power Platform. On the other side, this has been on Microsoft 365. This has been available already for a long time as well. Now, on developer side, there was a great news on last Friday. Fluid Framework 2.0 Alpha is now available, which is really cool. It is for really cool technology for sure, right, Waldek? Have you implemented anything on top of the Fluid Framework? Okay.
No, I had no scenarios that is like, hey, like I need this for, because everything like that I can think of that I need for my work is available already in the products that we use. And the challenging part is, or the interesting thing is, we use the products that we built at Microsoft are built on top of this. So we use this already. But because we do, like I have an app taking notes collaboratively. I can do it in Loop app or a Loop. So that is there already. Yeah. What else do I need? Maybe a whiteboard. We have that already. What else do we need? So basically, like all the biggest needs that I have are matched already. So I don't like, like I can. There's not much for me to need on top of that. So I think I might need some more. Hey, in the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I'm going to go on the vacation. So maybe that will be the time when I think through some other things. Like, hey, like I haven't done this, and maybe that will be for me. The trigger point. Like. That's why I wanted to try.
Sure. Makes perfect sense. Absolutely. And then there was a updated collection of the new announcements from around Office settings in Build 2023. These are, again, really good collections of all of the things, and with screenshots and references to the APIs and what has been shipped and what can be done. Super cool stuff. Thank you for that. And then Sebastian Levert had a blog post related on Microsoft Graph Toolkit v3 release candidates. So, and this is going to be demoed in the community course as well. So please do check out those recordings. Good way of actually catching up on what's available in V3. So on top of the blog post as well. So, but a lot of cool stuff. And I think the most interesting one here was the chat. No, where's the chat?
That is a separate thing.
Okay, that's a separate thing. That's not in 3.
If you look at the changes here, the one that is really a game-changing thing is search. And like how far you can come with that, because like up until now it wasn't easy to build search driven experiences on MGT, because search is a post component or is a post API. So like even though there is MGT get, well, it's a get, it's not a post. So but now you have kind of like MGT post, which wraps the search experience, but it's really cool because of the templates, the way you can adjust them to your needs, and also out of the box you will get experience that is very close to the search that you get in product. And now you can build it in your own app. So it's really game changing when it comes to how easily you can build really rich apps that tap into the data and insights on M365.
Really cool stuff. Thank you for that. Now, a few other blog posts. Now we're heading to the community side. So Adam Wojcik had a released blog post related on Viva Connection Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, which increases for sure your productivity when you're building SharePoint framework projects for Microsoft Teams, Outlook, Viva, or SharePoint for SharePoint. So there's multiple different options, obviously with SharePoint framework, but there's a lot of great features and capabilities there. Even though you wouldn't be using that, and for creating the project, you can actually use it in top of any SharePoint framework solution, which is really, really cool. So it detects that you are running already a SharePoint framework, and then you can use it for simplified operations like the deployments and all of validation and all of that stuff. So really, really cool stuff. And thank you, Adam, for that. Also, Adam has been working on CLI for Microsoft 365 PnP PowerShell VS Code extensions for quite a long time, and this is a summary blog post where those are. So he's really into this VS Code extension stuff, but this is so cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of helper things, a lot of helper and samples and surfacing documentation directly within the VS Code. So really, really cool stuff. Thank you, Adam. Awesome, awesome stuff. TGIWE02, another Friday, finally a new article. That's an interesting title.
Thank God it's weekend, I guess.
I guess it is. No, I need to actually check it out. TGIWE.
Hey, Bing, what is TGIWE?
Thank
God it's weekend, I think.
I guess I guess that's what it means. Anyway, yeah, thank God it's weekend. Thank God it's Wednesday is also offered. Table games in the world. Teaching God's infinite wisdom.
Anyway, for the sake of time.
So these are basically collection of references, what Stefan has been running into and related on CSS styling, all of that stuff, and HTML. And he is really into this stuff, and he is really, really awesome. Great on these skills. And these are super, super cool articles related on, you know, what has been done. We played around with this one at some point with him, to toads, not turtles. Come on.
Turtles.
Turtles. Yes, turtles.
Yeah, it's a turtle.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, that's really, really cool. Thank you, Stefan, on that. Now, do you want to talk about Martin's blog post?
Definitely. So one of the things that we are being asked a lot is, how would you run CLI for Microsoft 365 on functions in Azure? And the reason for that is, well, imagine that you've got an automation that you want to run either on a clock or as a result of an event. So how would you go about it? Martin did a great article explaining that, like, how would you set it up so that it works? Because there are quite a few things included to have it run really optimally, right? So if you are interested in that, if you have any need, check out this article, because it will basically give you a guide, step-by-step guide, how you can set it up, how you can make CLI for Microsoft 365 work in Azure functions.
Yep, really, really cool. Thank you, Martin, on that one. Awesome stuff. Now, from the Oleg Petruk, I was expecting Agnes, but there's a blog post related to Microsoft's roadmap updates on June 2023, and Agnes is the CEO. I think Search explains, so that typically these are from Agnes, but that's okay. So basically calling out all of the different things which are rolling out and which has been announced within the Microsoft 365 Search Center or in the roadmap. So a lot of cool stuff on here as well, gradually rolling out within the different areas of Microsoft 365. On the video side, April had a 13 days ago already. First look on the Power Automate Copilot. Really, really cool video on explaining how that works and what you can do to use it. So basically use your natural language to create your flows, which is awesome. So rather than using technical language, you can just ask it to do things. Yeah. Shane Young had a say goodbye to email, simplified TPS reports with Teams adaptive cards. So basically, rather than sending this stuff in email, collect the information directly in Teams. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And there's the Office Space reference as well. So
yes.
Have you filled in those TPS reports already?
Yes.
So.
Yes. Hey. Yeah.
Hey. Now, Giuliano De Luca also had a blog post, a video, how to use AI in Power Apps, aka Copilot. So that's basically similar, overlapping with April's, not overlapping, but that's Power Automate, and Giuliano is talking about Power Apps, and both of them have now the same Copilot integrated in it, which is really, really cool. And then Paolo had a blog post, video on Microsoft Teams Toolkit V5 from Zero to Hero Part 2. This is a set of series on the Teams Toolkit version 5 and how you can use it to simplify Microsoft Teams development. The V5 is actually really, really, really good. So it's and the F5 experience is just magical, like we saw within last week on the demos as well within the Teams hackathon. Yeah. And then this should have been actually a bit earlier, but Peter Venstra had a new blog post related on performance of Graph API, REST API, and web services in SharePoint and Power Automate, and good comparison related on those executions and how long does it actually take to do certain things based on your objectives. It's good to evaluate objectives for sure. And
yeah,
was there a
conclusion? You might want to rely on retry, however, with some of the retries. No conclusion. No conclusion when it comes to which API to use for what.
It depends. That's why we have consultants.
Yeah, there we go.
Right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly.
I guess that's it for this one. I think we'll have the discussion about what's happening this week with Zoe. So we already had that. We haven't recorded that yet. But
so yes, it was a very good plan. It's very no.
But this is now the last episode of the PnP Weekly until we'll come back from the summer break in the Northern Hemisphere. It is actually super warm. I was on Greece last week, and it's pretty weird to fly back to Finland, and it's warmer in Finland than it is in Greece. So, it's
global warming is a hoax.
Sure it is. But yeah, we'll be back in end of August, roughly. We'll see whatever week we'll start actually executing this again. It's just easier this way rather than try to figure out who is not on vacation during summertime, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like for everybody, have well-deserved time off, recharge, and yes. if you are not going away, if you're not taking time off, enjoy the quiet time as some other folks might. So
yep, absolutely. Thanks everybody for watching or listening. Depending on our format, please give us feedback related on what we're doing, what works and what doesn't work. If you have good ideas, suggestions, those are always welcome as well. But have a great summer if you are living in the Northern Hemisphere. Have a great winter if you're living in Southern Hemisphere. We'll be back after the break. Sounds good.
See you, everybody.
Cheers. Bye-bye.